All right. Well, it's nice to officially welcome you all here tonight for a very special session that we have with two very inspiring and very distinguished conductors in our field. Tonight is going to be focused on specifically cultivating personal artistry and musicianship. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce one of our distinguished panelists tonight. Professor Davis is the Rose Ann Carr Millsap Distinguished Professor of Music at and director of bands and wind ensembles at the University of Missouri Kansas City Conservatory. He's been a guest conductor almost everywhere you can imagine. He's a regular conductor and the director of wind ensemble up at Interlochen in the summer, and he also is the director of the Kansas City Youth Symphony as well. And we are very excited and deeply honored to have him here tonight. So we can all just give a virtual Zoom welcome to Professor Davis.
Thank you, Isaac. I appreciate it very much. So I will try not to embarrass anybody, include most of all you and everyone that invited me. I will do my best. And we'll start with my obviously beautiful apparel today, which is Go Roar. I'm sure everyone can appreciate that. Kansas City proud. We are winning. Last I checked, 13-9. I don't know if that's still what it is, but I'm not paying attention to that. I promise I will be in the now on this Zoom screen. So.
Well, the Phillies already
focus.
The Phillies already won, so I don't have to be distracted by that today. Go Phils. Awesome. So I have the pleasure tonight of introducing Rodney Dorsey, professor of music in bands and chair of the Department of Bands at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music, a position he has held since the fall of 2018. He is the conductor of the internationally recognized Indiana Wind Ensemble and guides all aspects of the Graduate Wind Conducting program. Dorsey held previous positions at the University of Oregon, University of Michigan, DePaul University, and Northwestern University, and has presented clinic sessions at national and state conferences, including Midwest and several others. So we're very thrilled to have you with us tonight. If everyone could please welcome our panelists.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you both. So we're going to jump right in. And our questions tonight are fairly open-ended because we wanted to really give you both the floor. So these are just guiding questions. So first off tonight, how do you push your own limits of artistic and expressive comfort? And what suggestions do you have for younger conductors to discover avenues for their own artistic growth? And keep in mind that we are talking to a lot of teaching assistants tonight. So if you have any advice for how they may find some time for growing their own personal artistry.
Right. So I guess I start. So I think you have to just, number one, you just have to schedule some time. I tried to think back to, if you're in grad school, you've got a lot of responsibilities to take care of, depending on your teaching load or your workload. You just need to schedule in some time. And if you're in grad school, try to find time to listen and study things that you don't have to listen to and study. And maybe keep a list of pieces you don't know. The great thing about being in school is you are surrounded by music, all sorts of music. Don't just go to band concerts, go to all sorts of concerts. While you can, while they're free, while you know people that are playing in them. It's easy to just get in grad school and check the boxes that the school tells you to check because you need to get to the degree, and that's important. But just open yourself to what is at the school, what's available to you, and the people. Ask people questions. Introduce yourselves to people you don't know. Get to know the orchestra conductor if you're not in contact with them. Get to know the choir director and go to their concerts and things like that, because there's the curriculum, and then there's what you do for yourself. So there's what we tell you should have for school. And I would just get lost in the Northwestern University Music Library and just go grab a score or something I didn't know and just poke around and open it. The thing you have to be aware of when you're in grad school. How do I say this? You're the whole time you're really just borrowing other people's bands. And it's not going to be until you get away from grad school, no matter where you are, no matter how good the place is, no matter how good the teachers are, that you're going to figure out who you are, because you'll have your own students and you can build that relationship with those students, and then you'll be able to take more risks artistically. Because right now you're just figuring out who you want to be, and you're trying on things, and yeah, that works for Professor Davis. Let me try it. Ooh, that didn't work for me, and it's that type of thing. So, I mean, just immerse yourselves in things you don't have to do. And I'm sure Professor Davis will say the same thing. If I'm going to listen to something, 99 times out of 10, it probably won't be band music. It just won't. I'm sorry. I realize I should listen to more band music. So, just be a musician. Don't just get stuck in the band world. That's what my clarinet teacher at FSU did for me. He helped me become a musician, not just a clarinet and band jock.
I would agree with everything Rodney just shared with everybody, Professor Dorsey, of course. And you all need to know, because you may not know, that Rodney and I have been friends for over 30 years now. And
we never do the math.
And our paths are similar. And I want to just take a moment to all of you that are carving an hour out of your life on a day. If it's anything like it is in Kansas City right now, it's a stunning day. You have a lot of things you could be doing. And what I think growth is and expansion is just how you spend your daily walk. And I can tell you, when Rodney and I were each of your age and doing if there was an event in Florida and Rodney was in Lakeland and I was in Orlando and something cool was happening in Miami, we would have gotten in the car and there wouldn't have been a chance we would have missed it. I mean, that's just the commitment, the daily walk, how you spend your hours. So I just want to say to all of you, this is the way. Like, not that Rodney and I are going to give you magic dust, but just getting in environments with colleagues and friends and peers and elevating scenarios. But that's all an aside to me. I think when it comes to expansive artistic growth, you have to look at your DNA, who you are, and ask yourself, are you maxing out every aspect of you? And if you're not, then you just have to figure out ways, hopefully through good mentors that are encouraging you and giving you specific pedagogical ways to transition from your known to an unknown that you may not even be aware exists yet. But through exposure and looking through different lenses and seeing different perspectives and really diving deeper than you may have known was possible as well. Through all of that, our sphere gets bigger. So we start graduate school on a certain size canvas of which we're capable of painting on. And let's just for fun, it's an 8.5 by 11. And hopefully when you leave, you're on 11 by 17. And after that, hopefully you're Jackson Pollock, and then you're on side of buildings, and then you're on side of cities, and then you're dreaming, whatever you can potentially dream. But the question for me is, are you maxing yourself out? If you're not, get in there and do it, because you can. You don't want to leave whatever talent we have, whatever gifts we have, whatever discipline we have, whatever anything we have. We don't want to leave it. We don't want to leave any fluids in the glasses. So and everything else Rodney said, I would say. And I'll talk to you all about rides that I had with Rodney in Orlando, or whenever we would get somewhere. And Rodney, one of the greatest things that I appreciated about Professor Dorsey from a very early on with Rodney is his love for the art form in general. And I agree with Rodney in listening to band music. We're around band music. We're consumed with band music. So getting out of that, and Rodney always had an art song on or something beautiful, or have you heard this recording of Renee Fleming? Have you heard this recording of Jesse Norman, or whatever it is? And just listening to those things when we were cutting our teeth, 22, 23, 25, 26 years old, trying to figure it out. I mean, and we had mentors. Rodney and I on Mahler's birthday went to a person's house and he wanted to play all 10 Mahler symphonies for us. And we just looked at each other like, oh my gosh, he's going to play them all. And like, how are we going to get out of here? So, I mean, those are environments that we put ourselves in and continue to. So I'm proud of you, all of you. So let's just have a great hour together and let's all grow and be a little bit better tonight than we were when we started. That's the goal. So that would be my answer.
That's Awesome. So to dive a little bit deeper to expand our canvas, how do you cultivate your own creative interpretation of a work? And can you share a bit about maybe your score study techniques and then how creativity and artistry take part in that process? And we'll start with Professor Davis.
What was the question? Score study and creativity, right?
Yes.
Isaac, too many words. Sorry. All right. So score study. 3,462 variables, and you're never going to get a whole look at it. So, but that's our key. That's just a key. It's black ink on a white page, and we try to. It's a deciphering map. It's a treasure hunt. So we look at this and we gather as much information as we can. Great. We can do that in 1,000 different ways. We can start with the name of the piece. We can start with the publisher. We can start with year written. We can start with composer. We can start with context of composer. Composer's life. Piece written directly before the piece. Piece written directly after. What was it written for? Why was it written? So that's just musicological ideals, right? So we can spend as much time as we want in that environment. But then you got to get into the fundamentals. This is my awesome dog, Thomas, that's going to decide to destroy this. Then you got to get into the musicological fundamental ideals, harmony, rhythm, and then ear training, and then phrasing and dynamics and orchestration and textures and tessituras and balance and all these things. And oh my gosh, and possibilities on the instruments. Is it idiomatic? Is it not idiomatic? All these things can just wear us out, right? But you have to do the best you can to consume the concrete ideas in the score, and they're never ending. So you can spend months and months on that, go as far as you want, but much of that will have nothing to do with anything creative. That's just data collection, and for a lot of people the data collection is where it stops. For me, the data collection is just whatever. It has really no great meaning to me. It's getting dressed for the day, and I'm in my clothes now, but I haven't walked anywhere, and how am I going to walk, and what am I going to do when I'm walking? So now you look at the piece and you see a clarinet solo, and how do you want it to go? I mean, how do you imagine that notation? How can that notation be shared? And in what kind of possibilities exist in the tone? What kind of possibilities exist in the journey? What kind of possibilities exist in the shape? What kind of possibilities exist in the vibrato? What kind of possibilities happen in the elision that you're going to pass off to the person next to you? Like, how are we going to join together? How are we going to get our principal clarinet player to be more expansive in their expression and maximizing their DNA of possibilities? That's where the joy is. And then when you see those kind of things happen in real time, I mean, good grief. And how do we imagine? I don't know how we imagine. I was looking out this window right now. I see green grass. How high do I want to cut it? The guy's coming to cut it on Friday. Like, 3.5 inches, 3.27. What looks the best? What's most aesthetically pleasing? And what makes me happiest when I am in that context? So that's, to me, the way I look at score study. But creativity, I mean, if it was all the concrete stuff, the objective stuff, I mean, good grief, how boring could that be? So it's got to be more than that to me, the imagination. And by the way, I'll add one more thing. Sorry, you got a nuts dog here. Come here. Thomas wants a treat. I don't even know what I was about to say. What did I say? And by the way, I forget. Rodney, go on.
We were talking.
Got to get rid of the dog. Rodney, piggyback.
Okay, so yeah, I believe all of that also. And I think the key word that Professor Davis said, which I think a lot about, is what's possible. You open the score and you look at it and you go, what is possible from this music? And I totally agree that I think us band directors, and I was a high school band director for 8 years, because of the whole adjudicated festival stuff, we get stuck in the objective things, just like Steve said. We get stuck there because that's where they're going to put A's, B's, C's and give us a rating, right? What box on the sheet talks about did this piece move me or not? Did your performance of this piece move me? Well, I give you a C on that. Well, why? Well, because it's hard. It's subjective, right? A graduate student today had a recital, at Indiana, no more than 12 wind players can be in a group at a time. We did all that stuff. But I'm sitting there in the room, and it was so nice just to hear people play together, and things getting passed from one person to the other, a unison note, and how that changes. And that's what Steve's talking about score study. We can intellectualize that this is a unison, but until you can imagine that sound just being passed from one instrument to the next, and the color just being seamless, and it's not like oboe stops, clarinet starts, but all of a sudden the color is different. That's the thing that I hope you all get to way sooner than I did. And things like that. And I also agree with Steve. It's about giving students and players enough room to share their creativity too. Don't micromanage every note they play. Just don't do it. And there have been some things students have done that I go, wow, I wouldn't have phrased that way, but I like it. You just kind of look at them and you're like, yeah, yeah, okay. And it's not like, no, don't diminuendo there. Sustain it all the way. That's just like this to musicians. So I totally agree with Steve. Know the details as much as you need to, but yeah, start thinking about what's possible with the music making, and the stuff is not on the page, and what's between the notes and how are they connected. That's the stuff that made us play music and stick with it, I think.
Thank you so much. And that provides a perfect segue into our next question, which is specifically about engaging our ensemble members in the creative process and inviting artistic collaboration from our students. So Dr. Dorsey, if you could speak a little more about that.
Yeah, I think conducting, well, let me back up. I think a lot of times band people don't think about large ensemble playing as chamber music. It's this, I have all the information. I'm going to feed it to all you out there in the ensemble, and you just follow orders. So for me, there are times where soloists, maybe soli section, I'm going to follow them more than they're going to follow me. And it's this delicate dance of they lead and then they give it back to me, and then we're back together, and then someone else might lead, or someone else might take it from someone else. And it took me a long time to get to that and really think about what's really going on. And I think it comes from orchestral playing, because the wind players, it is chamber music. And that's why for us wind players, playing in orchestra is like the holy grail. And string players, it's like it puts food on the table, but their string quartet is their holy grail, I think. But it's allowing it. I think it's a give and take, and that requires trust in your students and your students in you. Because there was a time when when I taught high school, my last job, when I was closest to Steve and over in Lakeland and he was in Orlando, I went through this phase of I didn't trust my students as far as I can throw them. They had enough space to like make a mistake once, and I'm like, guess you didn't practice. I'm gonna practice it for you. Come by after school, and I just didn't trust them at all, and it was this antagonistic thing, and it just wasn't healthy for anybody. And somehow I broke out of that and have moved more towards trusting the students, and don't wait until you're at Indiana or UMKC to trust people. You can trust middle school students. You can. You teach them, give them space to do things, and they can do that. But I believe it's this delicate thing we do that's hard to explain, but maybe Steve can come up with it more. But I think it's just giving them space to do what they can do. Because here's one more thing. I have my group play. I'll start them and then they play by themselves. And somewhere deep down in my soul, I'm thinking, please don't sound better. Please don't sound better. Please don't sound better. Because it might. And then there's nobody to blame, but I'm messing this up. When they play by themselves, they're free to just play. So how can I rejoin this in a way that maintains that? Yeah, take it away, Davis.
Well stated, Professor Dorsey. I would just say we're teachers, and that's our job. It's not self-inflators. That's not our job. That literally is not our job. Our job is to inspire the greatest potential assets the earth has, and that's these beautiful kids in front of us, no matter the age. And in real time, we have to figure out a way to engage in a way that is kind and inspiring and inspirational and whatever else, any other student-centered nomenclature or adjective you want to place upon it. And if our kids can express at X level at the end of their journey with us, they need to be at Y level. If their ears are wherever they are, they need to get bigger. If their self trust is low, then we have to help them expand it. If they're whatever it is, and we have to encourage them to be active in the process. So when I meet with the beginning of every year, I meet with the ensemble. And I meet 15, 30, 25, whatever. It's usually scheduled for 10 to 15 minutes, and I usually go about 40 minutes, and I'm behind, and then we have to rewrite the schedule. But I love it, and I'm not going to stick to that schedule to miss out on this amazing moment of potential growth with this person that's given their life to come study at our school. That's worth being a little bit behind on, first of all, okay. But in that meeting, if I'll talk to a trumpet player, I'll say, hey, why is the UMKC Conservatory Wind Symphony going to be the best it's ever been in the history of its forming? Because you're a member of it. And then they have to look at me and say, oh, shoot, never thought about that. And then I say, what are you going to bring to rehearsal? What are you going to share with the trumpets? How are you going to decide this phrase goes? How are you going to be prepared? What kind of model of excellence are you going to share with this entire 772 member conservatory? And how are you going to embody that every single moment of your life to the maximum of your capability? That's the talk. And then sure, I don't mean to scare them, but I mean, hey, this is a we endeavor. This isn't a me to you endeavor. We're not in the 18th century anymore. We're not going to perform at you. We're going to perform holistically in an embodiment that loves each other. We're going to care for each other. We're going to hold up this art form that we've given our lives to. And that's to kids, to the next generation. And then it's going to be better when we leave. And I mean, what better way to spend a journey on a planet? I mean, can it get any better than that? So we don't need to be woe is me teachers. We need to be like 12 feet, 9 inches tall. We are literally enhancing the world through our daily lives. And that, I mean, come on. So those kids, I mean, what do you want for them? I want something for all of them, even the ones that aren't as easy to like. It's just the truth. And some aren't as easy to love. I mean, let's just say it. You know, what is it? You can choose your friends. You can't choose your family. And you got to love that family member that, where are you from? You know, you can't be from this family because you're from a different planet or something, but you still love them. So that's same for our kids. I'm not meaning to be, I'm 52. I can't help it. I'm old. So everyone's young to me, like not in beauty and amazingness and minds and inspiration, but I'm just old. So when I say kids, just
yeah, easy on the old thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're older, so we'll get I'm just.
Well, thank you for reminding all of us that we are educators in this field, and that has to fuel a lot of what we do on a daily basis. But I wanted to steer the conversation even more to younger students, some that might be teaching in public schools, or some that might be maybe getting a college job, but at a younger, sort of place. So how can you advise that we balance pedagogy with artistry when we are working with these younger students, and cultivating artistry when we are also worried about, teaching them the fundamentals of their instruments and ensemble playing?
I think I go first on this one?
You can go first. Thank you.
What's the name of that book? Teaching Music Through Performance in Band. I think that's an interesting title. And it's not, we're teaching an art form, right? We're teaching musicianship. We're teaching however we define that. And I don't know how many people are in here, 34, 3, 6, 9, 12, 36 people. With these 36 people in here, we're all gonna come to that maybe from a different vantage point. That's cool. That's actually beautiful. But it's Rodney, you go. I'm going to come back. I want to get these. I'm really close to like nailing this, but I want to make sure because my brains are crossed right now.
Well, I think I get the question, because if somebody showed up, let's say we're actually in person, you go to Midwest, you go to a clinic, and then you don't know the clinician, but they're supposed to have this knowledge about this subject, and they walk in, they smell, it's obviously they haven't bathed, their hair is really long, teeth missing, and they got bags with them and all this stuff. Of course, your brain is going to start, well, why is it this person doesn't know what they're talking about? So there is that part of fundamentals that we need to teach, right? So, someone walks in the room, they might not know anything, but if they're dressed to the nines, got a cool haircut, got cool clothes on, you're like, oh, this is going to be a good session. They don't know anything about music. They just start and then oh, well, I thought that, and then you look at your watch and then people start leaving, right? So you have to balance those things. I think, we're influenced by former teachers. One of my clarinet teachers at FSU was a master at this, Frank Kowalski. When I first started with him, he would have me play something, and he'd go, your tone is a little bit bright for this passage. Can it just be a little bit darker and rounder? And when I first started taking lessons with him, I would ask him, well, how do you want me to do that? And he would go, he might play it for me, and then I would just try to do it. Okay. And that worked for me, right? Now, granted, you're thinking, okay, I'm a music major. I've been taking lessons for a long time, and I know some technical things about how to adjust my embouchure and airspeed to make my sound darker. So I had to learn that somewhere along the way. But he could have worked with me and said, yeah, you need to change the speed of your air, blah, 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 and said 50,000 things. But he just said, can that be darker? And he might model it for me. And it worked. You can't do that all the time if Billy can't read bass clef. I get that. And I've dealt with students like that. Billy couldn't read, he was middle school band for 3 years and he couldn't read bass clef. I had to teach him how to read bass clef. But I think there's someone Steve and I worked with at Michigan, Fritz Kinzig. He would say there's always a musical solution for a technical problem. And how can you, okay, pitch is not good, but what if we focus on line? That might help the pitch be better in the large ensemble setting. Oh, it did. But you still might have to work with Billy so he knows where bad notes are on his horn, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's a balancing act, and it's a lot of it is just knowing your audience and clientele. I mean, now I'm gonna fish for whatever solution I can get to that solves the problem that isn't technical. If they can listen to each other more, if I can direct their ears, can everybody just listen back to the trombones? Oh, balance is better and the pitch is better. So it's that balancing act, and the more experience you get at that, and the more rehearsals you watch, and the more like master classes you go to that aren't band rehearsals, you'll start to do this. Because a lot of us have watched master classes in the pandemic, and with the greatest artists, they never talk about anything technical. You watch Daniel Barenboim do a piano master class. Does he ever talk about, lifting from here or here's some? They just talk about music. So in the journey, that's the goal, and how you get there is your own path. Did I give you enough time, Steve?
Yeah, I just tried to be. Rodney, you're right with everything. I'm just trying to whittle it down, and I think I got it. It's
okay. Go.
The what. It's not the what. It's the how. So everything you teach can be musical or it can be technical. So if we're going to do F around the room, you can play that F with a beautiful entrance, with an imaginative adjective, with some kind of great musical intention that can be applicable to an ensemble scenario or a solo scenario or whatever scenario, quintet scenario, trio, duet, whatever you want to, whatever scenario you want to put it in. So if you go da 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 da, name me a piece that does that. I mean, you might find something that's intentionally written minimalistically, that's a repetitive motion, something that's stagnant, that's really slow harmonic progression, some kind of landscape kind of scenario. It could happen, but it's going to happen in about 1/1000th of any kind of potential musical scenario. So why would we teach it that way? Why wouldn't we phrase it? Why wouldn't we shape it? Why wouldn't we express during it? Why wouldn't we really connect it to make a legati phrase? And listen, I taught middle school. So you can't tell me it can't be done. I did it. So we can do it. It's just a lens that you look through. So
and don't wait to do it after you get all this other stuff. Just don't do it. Don't wait.
And the other thing, if you change that, I understand consistency. I get it. I understand routine. Routine's a great way of learning. When I'm on a routine, that's when my calorie intake is the most consistent. When I start to travel, my calories are all over the place, usually on the high side, and then I'm paying the price when I get back on my routine, right? That's just what it is. But these routines, within the frame of the routine, you can do things that share it in a musical way. So, and you can change that. You can sing it. They can sing it back. So you can build expansion of ears through a warm-up procedure of learning basic rhythm. I'm just giving you one thing. I conduct grade 19 music now. I get it. But I spent a lot of time on grade 1 music rehearsals. So I know that this can be done. So it's just the lens. Bob Reynolds said the same thing to me: after it's perfect, then what? You work on all these technical things, but then what? And if the then what is what you're trying to get to, why aren't you starting there? Because that's the cool stuff, right? That's the cool stuff. Last thing I want to say, I stopped myself before my dog had the issues. But when I was in my grad school time, I was pretty much taught a philosophy that the only role a conductor has is to serve a composer, and this, be in it to win it for the composer. You are is essentially just a conduit of the composer, period. And I remember thinking, like, okay, you read the Poetics of Music, Stravinsky, and it says, realize my music, don't interpret my music. I'm like, well, then why don't we just put something in AI up here? I had that metronome on my piano growing up, that old wooden one. They can see that. That's a good conductor, right? They can see where the beats change. Why don't we just say 140 here, Stravinsky, and we'll set this old wooden, metronome to be able to do the asymmetrical patterns too. Ready, set, go. Like, there has to be more to it than that. So I've struggled with that my whole life, and I've worked my whole life to be a better musician. So I hope that at 52, my expansionness of my musicianship is way better than it was when I was 23. And shouldn't I bring those interpretive ideals to this? I mean, I've learned a lot. I need to bring that to it and then see what happens. So it's maximum expression, within the written language that is the notation, right? And the same thing in fundamentals versus technical ideals. Bring your most musical self to it, and that doesn't get old. That's awesome to express. When we express, isn't that joyful for all of us? Have you ever left something and say, wow, I didn't give my full self. I know there's more in me, but I didn't let it out. And then we all have that mountaintop experience where we let it out and we're like, wow, that felt good. And it was joyful. And that's the time you congratulate and you pick your peers up and say, wow, I saw a lot of risk there. And good for you, and hold them up and take them out afterwards and celebrate it, because that is an artist growing. And
that requires trust in yourself too.
Yes.
You have to trust yourself. I mean, how many times have, your gut told you, I think this is too slow. But no, this is what it says on the page. And then you record it and listen to it back and the piece is just laying there like a wet noodle. Yeah, I should have taken it faster, but I didn't. It's trust.
And I will tell you, those of you that are making the transition from public school to college teaching, Rodney, I know Rodney will back this up because we both lived it. So I get essentially from high school teaching with a very small stint between. I'm doing the first concert with the University of Michigan concert band, and I don't know how many rehearsals it was. 3 weeks, 3 rehearsals, 9, maybe 12 rehearsals. I don't know what it was, but I'm picking everything apart in rehearsal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 3 rehearsals left, and I haven't rehearsed 80% of this, and we're gonna crash. We're gonna crash, man. This is gonna be the most embarrassing concert in the history of the University of Michigan. I remember that week and a half being so stressful. And I didn't do it right. I was too micro and too soon. And from those lessons, learn from us. Like now I've changed it to macro, micro, macro, micro, macro. I was always taught macro, micro, macro, but I just did macro, micro, and then I would live in micro and then pray that the macro was held together. And I just started thinking this isn't logical. We need a life preserver in the middle of this, so we can get some comfort in this instead of the hold on for dear life mentality that so many of us. I remember we were performing at the American Bandmasters Association concert when I was at FSU, and it was filled with people. And we had a folder filled with music, and we finished the concert, and Dr. Croft turns to the band and says, I don't remember what march it was, get out the march. And I looked at Wildy Zumwalt, who's now at SUNY Fredonia teaching sax. I said, have we ever played this? He's like, nope. And I was like, oh. For the love of God. Like, that was the highest level of focus I've ever had in my life, right? And we did a nice job, but I just remember sitting there going, holy cow. But we were fluent enough. We were prepared enough. We were attained enough. He trusted us enough to let us potentially succeed.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, Steve, one of the things I remember from playing in Dr. Croft's bands that has informed what I do now is so many times he'd tell a lot of stories in rehearsal. And so many times I would sit down on the concert stage and look at my stand partner and go, have we ever played this piece front to back without stopping? And it's bad when they look up and to the left and they're trying to recall if that ever happened. And I don't know, just like Steve said, somehow it worked, but I don't want to live that close to the edge. We run things halfway through the cycle, and that actually helps me remember where I haven't rehearsed. When the band doesn't sound good, I'm blaming it on me, not them. It's like, bingo. Yeah, okay, this was on me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. To kind of shift gears a little bit, how does artistry factor into the programming process? I know that's such a huge and vital part of what we do for programs. And just a second part to this question, how do you approach non-traditional concert programming, whether you incorporate dancers, whether you incorporate staging or other non-traditional aspects as well?
Yeah,
And then I
is
think
that
we can
me?
start, yeah, Dr. Dorsey with this.
Okay, so first thing I'll tell you is this: the one of the best examples I saw of this is with Steve Davis's band at a CBDNA National. It was the first half of a concert, Bernstein. It was amazing. He could have stopped there, but then he just kept going, right? So I think one of the things I've thought about a lot during this time off is is how much possibility there is for collaboration on all sorts of levels. Before the pandemic and Zoom, I hadn't asked my choral conducting colleagues to talk to my grad students. I did. I hadn't asked my orchestra colleague to talk to my grad students. I did. And I'm going to continue to do that. Our one of our ballet faculty during this time, I asked her, hey, would you ever consider collaborating with the wind ensemble to do something? She's like, of course. So my thought process is, well, why haven't I done that before now? So if there's any good about COVID, it's just getting us to think and reach out and collaborate. Um, the whole artistry and in programming, and here's something else COVID is made me think about too. When we get back to this full band stuff, I'm just gonna do some pieces that I just want to do, not because I think I have to do them, or there's just some pieces, they might be unconventional, but I'm just gonna do them because I want to do them. Um, I think maybe how kind of the narrative of a concert we don't think about enough, the flow, how things are gonna go together. Are people gonna be able to laugh? Because I go to a concert and I want to hear music. I want to be able to smile. Are we doing things that are not frightening people but challenging them in some musical way? And now there's a lot of talk about social justice issues and things we can challenge people that way. I can't remember the composer of the piece. The title is called Last Words. Tom McCauley did it at CBDNA. It's with a singer, and it's the final words of people that were killed by the police. I think black men killed by the police. And I think, number one, that's pretty bold to do at a CBDNA conference. Number one, that is shocking. And at the end of the piece, the ensemble stands up and holds up their hands for like an uncomfortable amount of time. I mean, that is challenging a lot of different people to get them to think about things like that. So I think we need to think about, and like Steve said, be student centered. What do the students need? What do the students need to be exposed to? What's their daily life like? And I think then, combined with the whole collaborative process, we can just kind of get out of ticking boxes of the standards we need to do. But seriously, when you guys sent me this question and I was supposed to start out with it, I'm like, man, that was it on the waterfront you did, Steve? You a gangster hat. It was the coolest thing ever, and it was a huge collaboration. So if you haven't seen that or anything, Steve, you should tell them about that. That is like the epitome of this question.
Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah.
I agree with everything Rodney just said. So, listen, in your musicology, not in your musicology, in your any kind of philosophy class that you're in, you have to write a philosophy. You need to write it. And you need to think about what you want your life to say. And you need to say, what lens do you want to say it through? And then go and dream. So I love collaborating. It's not, I hear people, say, well, why can't you just do a wind ensemble concert? I do a lot of just wind ensemble concerts. Like 80% of my concerts are just wind ensemble concerts. But even in those, we try to dream and express and have something to say, whatever it is. And that's always changing. I mean, I've done concerts with the Exotic Birds Club in Kansas City, and we played exotic birds, and we played the Baba Uma Mau Mau, Baba Uma Uma Mau, bird is the word. And I got a Cubs jersey with bird as my last name and conducted from it. And we did, ornithology with the jazz combo, and we did music for Prague because it starts with birds. And we had the bird society in the lobby with all these cool birds that everyone wanted to listen to and see. We've done the planets. Great. People have done the planets, but we got the astronomy club and all the people in Kansas City to come and put 20 huge telescopes outside the Kauffman Center. And I had the scientists on campus design posters for every single planet with people there speaking about the planets at intermission and said, everybody get out there and go learn about these things before we play them. And then we had the NASA thing but it was cool. They actually were looking at the planets. So it brought a 3D effect to that concert. Of course, we did Least War. How many times have we done Soldier's Tale? We wanted to reimagine it. We built a stage in the middle of the hall. We had people wear costumes. We had the Devil's Dance with the violinist out on the middle of the stage with a mic on the violin, jamming out. We had us in red and black. We had the devil on stage, and we had super lighting, and we had the theater department in there. And lo and behold, who shows up at the concert on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, a matinee concert? The chancellor of the school. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He says, I just live down the block. I thought I'd walk into the Performing Arts Center and see what's going on. He comes into the hall and sits down, and he's like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. What was it? He didn't even know what he was listening to, right? He was like, what is it? But all this, cool stuff was happening, man. And so, just whatever it is, and artistic possibilities in programming. Come on, I mean, there's 8 billion perspectives: cooking, cars, trees, any social justice cause you believe in, any sports and friendships and love and care and fear and whatever. So we were dreaming about hosting that CBDNA that Rodney's talking about, and so we just want to. I'll give you 2 stories tangibly in my life, 3 stories. So first performance, CBDNA regional at the school. This is like this is our first time on the stage in a long time in any kind of venue. I said, we have to put out here what we believe in. I got to risk it, right? So we did the Stravinsky Piano Concerto. I had never conducted it before. It was a regional, and if you haven't conducted it before, hold on. Coming out of that Kazenza, if you want to practice something, go practice that, y'all. It's not, it'll work you out. You'll be better when you leave it, I promise you. So I said, let's do it. So I did it. And then the national, everyone, Rodney will tell you this, when we would go to these literature classes and what's your top 10 piece, your top 20 piece, your top 50 piece list, everybody had to have one. And this piece called the Berg Camera Concerts on there. And I didn't even know how to spell Berg. And I certainly never heard a performance of Berg. And I said, okay, this is on everyone's top 10 list. I'll do it, put me in. So I did it. And it was scary. I didn't know if we were going to lay the biggest egg in the history of CBDNA National Conference performance. But I will also tell you, my identity isn't attached to it. My care and my desire, I can't say I'm a vulnerable artist and then not be willing to be a leader in front of an ensemble and not actually take that vulnerability on. I have to wear that clothing at the highest level of risk if I'm to have an ensemble that's going to risk. Right? That's just the way, that's how I look at it. So the waterfront thing happened. We got the Kauffman Center, we got the greatest hall in the country, and I know people in Dallas and LA and New York, I understand. In the greatest hall in the country here in Kansas City, just kidding, sort of. So we had this great opportunity to do something that I thought would be very special. And I didn't have to get on buses with 1 million people. I had the forces here in town, and I wanted to be a good colleague for the entire school. Like, not just, I didn't want to live in my little, I wanted to show that, man, they've got really great dancers at that school. boy, oh boy, we just did a piece written for us by a Pulitzer Prize winning composer, Zhou Long. And by the way, it was carefully constructed to not to be a poser. It was carefully constructed to share a philosophy that we have worked diligently and desperately to evolve and to center on things that we believe. And I'm not gonna ever be scared to take on those risks. And when it comes to repertoire choices, I mean, I have spent the last 3, 5, 7 years of my life being exposed to, I don't know, thousands more new pieces. And when you start to do that at 50 years old, it'd be easy for me to live in my past pieces. I mean, it would be. I could live a whole career in my past pieces. But then I'm a relic. And I will not become a relic. I will be 80 years old and I will be 25 years old in my brain. That's who I am.
We don't have to sell tickets. We don't have to sell tickets either. So,
but I'm not going to be a relic. And you have a decision to make. You're going to evolve. You're going to grow. You're going to change. You're going to expand. You're going to reanalyze. You're going to look it through different lenses and different viewpoints. And by the way, by doing that, you become a better person. So let's put me in, coach. That's the way I think about it. So
what's the score, coach?
I think we won. I hope. I did look. 14 to 10. 14 to 10. Go Royals. We're 1-0. That might be the last time the whole season we have a winning record. So let's all.
Yeah.
Let's all celebrate. All right.
That's awesome. So I want to circle back on something earlier that we talked about, and I was talking about the idea of expanding or individual artistic canvas. Can you all maybe both share some specific ways and maybe some specific memories that you had a moment where you felt that artistic canvas expand from like an 8.5 to 11 to 11 by 17?
And that's me, right?
Yeah, you can start, Professor Davis, if you want.
I don't have to start. I'm just trying to learn the environment. Okay. There's a lot of them, and I call them windows of learning. And when you walk through a door, you're never going to be able to go back through the door because you just learned something. And you learn as fast as you can learn and as furiously as you can with as much intention of wanted growth. And I've told, if you heard me tell this story, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again, but it's always one that just jumps to me vividly. We were to perform at the Midwest Conference in 2010, I think it was, and we were doing Symphonic Metamorphosis by Hindemith, and the beautiful one of the most beautiful themes ever written in the world. We were doing pretty good on. We were doing pretty good on it, but it wasn't magic. And this little known artist named Leon Fleischer shows up to campus. I'm joking about the little known, but we did a Mozart piano concerto competition with all of our pianists. And whoever was the winner on the piano concerto got to play it with our chamber orchestra with Fleischer conducting it. And so they all played, and they chose the winner, and they're on stage, and there's no way I'm going to miss these rehearsals. I mean, I changed meetings, I did everything. So I'm sitting in there, there's 6 of us in the auditorium to an open rehearsal that I advertised to the whole band in the whole school and told everyone to go to this thing. 6 people showed up, by the way, and I was one of them. Okay, Joe Preezy was the other, so that only left 4 others. That was like the piano faculty. Okay, so that's another diatribe. You can't grow if you're not in the room. Okay, next subject. But he gets up there, pianist is playing something, and the orchestra's too loud. He says softer. And they play it again. He says softer. Play it again, softer. And the orchestra's looking at me, and they're like, one hair on the bow, moving like 1 millicentimeter every 12 seconds. They're like, man, there's no way we can play softer. And he was just relentless. Not mean. Just, you must play softer. So they play softer. They finally do it. And it's like this texture became like otherworldly. And the only reason he knew it is because he had played it 1,000 times and he knew that it was possible. Plus his genius, right? So Leon Fleischer, defined for me at 41 years old what a soft dynamic is. And had I not been in the room, I wouldn't have ever walked through that door of learning. The bad thing for the ensemble was immediately following this masterclass was rehearsal on the beautiful movement of the Hindemith. And I was like, whisper, whisper. Had y'all been in the class that I was just in, you know, I didn't say that, but I was like, you
wanted to.
But I said, I was just in the class. I just gave up 2 hours of my life. I just sat there and watched, and I learned at 41 years old what a pianissimo is. And we did it. And we worked at it. And okay, now I'm going to go to the fast forward. We're playing at Midwest. It was okay. I mean, we did some good stuff on that concert and some stuff. I mean, you know, it is what it is, right? We're on a journey. But when we got to that section, I remember being like so proud of us. Me too. Like we have all grown through this, and it was so beautiful when I was standing on that stage. Not because it was Midwest, not because it was anything. It was because we had grown musically. The concert finishes, people run up to me and to congratulate, and I stand there humbly and thank for the ensemble on behalf of everyone. And here comes this person we know, very famous in the field, and he says, I've heard that piece performed 3,500 times. I have never heard that slow movement performed like that. And I said to said person, you'd all know the name. I said, this is the truth. I said, thank Leon Fleischer. Because it was through Leon Fleischer's lens that I learned that. And then I was able to share it. And that is a perfect example of the apprenticeship art form. Through Leon, to Steve, to 60 amazing people that I hope are now also sharing that realization and that sensation. That's the butterfly effect, right? Isn't that cool? Isn't that like the coolest thing ever? And so we get the opportunity to do that to our kids. That's gold. Well, or Bitcoin, whatever. So it's good.
Same thing.
Yeah, it is. Well,
not really.
I'm into it. Let's not be everybody be cool. I'm into my crypto. All right.
Oh, how do I follow that? I don't know. You know, for me, I think a couple of times have been when I've had an opportunity to conduct an ensemble that's different than the one I usually work with. One of the first times I conducted a choir, it was amazing. And it was out at Oregon. We did a piece for choir and wind ensemble and 2 vocal soloists. And the first choir rehearsal I had, I told my choir director, I said, now I know why you do this. This is amazing. It's not big and heavy like a band. The music is coming directly out of a human being. This machine is not in the way. And there was this intimacy about it that was really amazing. And that was one time that I thought, wow, this is really special. How do I get some of this stuff that choirs do over to the band, you know, without doing massages before we start rehearsal, or something like that. But you know, that was one time, and also, and I agree with Steve. Anytime you're around the very best musicians, and you realize that the person who's playing the instrument or singing, this person is a fantastic musician who happens to play, fantastic musician who happens to play piano. Gene Picorni came out to Oregon for a week, and he did some stuff with a wind ensemble. And I didn't even want to look at the score. I just wanted to listen to him play. It was just beautiful. And whenever you're that close to that level of musicianship, you're thinking, this is a fantastic musician who happens to play tuba. I think we're all better for that.
Thank you both for sharing those. I think we're going to wrap up with one final question. What other than music inspires you artistically? And we'll start with Dr. Dorsey.
Ooh.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. There was a time in my life I had no hobbies. I was, running ruts in the road from the band room in Lakeland to my apartment. And so I started playing golf. And you might think, well, how does golf inspire you artistically? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with conducting and music, but then it does. And I found a great teacher who taught me a lot about teaching, not just golf. I lived in Oregon for 5 years, and I really got into wine like I never had, in a healthy way. But just talking to people that make wine, because it's not like Napa where it's like big and ritzy. Oregon winemakers, you can just go in and talk to the winemaker. And by the way, one of the winemakers I found out there was a student in the band that I did my student teaching in Lake Mary. He's now a winemaker in Oregon. So look up Bells Up Winery. David Spencer's really cool. But talking to these people, it's art and it's science. There's the science of all of this and malactic acid and all this stuff that they have to worry about. But there's this art to somebody being able to go out in a vineyard, pick a grape, taste it, and know what the possibilities are for this grape and how they make wine. So that is really, you pick up a score and you look at it and you start thinking about, man, what are the possibilities here? So there's that. My family, I don't have kids, but I'm married to someone that doesn't do music. She's a nurse. So that gives me a great perspective, a really good perspective. She worked with a spine surgeon for 20 some odd years in Chicago. And, if I drop a beat in a concert, every kid on my stage is going to walk off the stage and not be paralyzed. If her doctor had messed up in a 14-hour spine surgery. So there's some perspective for you. So those are some things. And we have cats. They're kind of funny. But, yeah, those are just some things away from what I do. I please have a hobby. I know it's easy for me to say that now because you're like, I got to learn every wind work top 50 from memory and be able to write out all the parts for everyone, don't I? Well, but don't forget about you and having something that keeps your humanity sane and you can become a deeper and more substantive person too. Don't forget that along the way.
Very well stated, Professor Dorsey. Something I'm proud of I think I can speak for Rodney too. We had a lot of fun along the way. It wasn't, we did. We had fun. We followed Shaq around Orlando one time.
He's not lying. That happened.
I'm not lying. We cut up and act silly and had fun and we're real people and
not lying.
No, and we're both Florida State grads, so in the final, 16, they're in the game. We're texting each other saying, "What a terrible shot!" Come on, whatever it is, and we still do those to this day. We do that. So that's have friends that support you, have friends that love you. Rodney, Ricky Fleming, who's at Buffalo State, and Rodney and I were very close in our formative years where we were cutting our teeth, learning how to do it, looking at these people in our lives that were so inspiring to us. We wanted to grow up and be like them. So we got in the rooms with people like that. But okay, that's on the music side. But it's not any different than, I agree completely with Rodney. So I have been known to enjoy cigars. I know. I don't want the lecture. I don't want a diatribe. I've given up every vice. I don't do anything. I don't drink. I don't social media. I'm out, man. But I smoke cigars. So I know I'm a terrible person. But that's my last vice. And I sit down with people walking every aspect of a life's journey and just sit down and talk. We have city councilmen. We have someone on the city council that's a liberal Democrat. We have a state senator that's in our place that's a right of center state senator. And they're in the room together and they're talking and they're being kind and they're listening to each other. And I'm watching this. I said, oh my gosh, it seems so fractured in real life. But right now in front of me, I actually see people dialoguing without screaming at each other. So that actually gives me some inspiration. And then I watch, there's a person that came in the other day that was a pilot. And he's talking to me about V-Force. And I'm listening, learning about that. And I could go down 5,000 different professions. And it's so stimulating to me to learn, wow, I never thought about that perspective. I never thought about that. That's interesting. Wow. Okay, whatever it is. Dogs, food, golf. I'm back into golf again. Rodney and I did a lot of golfing together too. And come on, I know Tampa got lucky on one day, but we got, Kansas City Chiefs here, football team. We got sporting. I love sports. I'm sorry. My dad was a coach. I know all the coach, and he was an administrator. I know we find that shocking that there was a coach that was an administrator, but that was my dad. But I grew up with, playing every sport there was. So it helped me, but I enjoy a lot of things. So, I was just on a podcast recently and I just talked about, I like to share my life around really inspiring people that are better than me, that I'm vulnerable enough to be in a room just trying to hold on for dear life. And through that process, I'm expanding. And then that's it. And then what happens? Then we learn a perspective. What do you want to do? Teachers, we go and we get excited to share it. We get excited to share it. And then what does that mean we have? That means we have passion. When we show passion, then this I word is added to your title. They say, man, they're inspirational. And then you're just, all that means is you're being a reflection of what you want in your kids. So, and I also said on that same podcast, be the teacher you want to be for yourself. And that's how you teach your kids. Do you all want to be berated? Do you want to be loved? Do you want to be cared for? Do you want to be picked up when you're down? Do you want to be forgiven? Do you want to be given a second shot? Your kids are no different. Do you get nervous? They do too. So we have to it is what it is. And I'm telling you, it's not so serious. Just in the now, look at the kid, care for him, care for yourself, have fun along the way, and then you'll retire and you'll have made a difference, and then whoever's next does it. So that's just the way it goes. I love it. And you know what? Last thing that keeps me sane are the graduate teaching assistants that I spend my life with. We are thicker than thieves, and we are constantly texting, constantly dreaming. They keep me so much younger. I always know the latest everything at 52. That's going to be important to you. I know a lot of 52-year-olds that are a lot older than me because they're not in an environment with 26. I don't mean like body. I mean, sure, this is rough, man. I'm talking about mental acuity, like newness, like aware, like what's happening, like, okay, pay attention here, not just live your 9 to 5, go to your same restaurants, go on vacation, repeat. That's not what we do. And we're blessed to learn from our students. So learn from them. That's what I love it. It keeps me young, honestly. So, and my wife, I'd be remiss not to say my wife, and I'd be remiss not to say my 2 dogs, because they're like greatest joy. I love they're my kids. I love them. So that's the things that I do: read, walk, joy, laugh, smile, whatever. Just live it. I'm serious. It's true.
That's awesome. Well, I think on that very optimistic and joyful note, unfortunately, we have to wrap up the conversation. And if you have your screen off and you're able to turn your screen on, can you join us in thanking our 2 amazing and inspirational guests?
Thank you all. Rodney, I love you.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Always good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I wanted to also do a quick thank you to Tina for being an awesome co-host and helping plan this as well.
Bravo, Tina.
And then we have a couple board members, Rob Ben and Weston Lewis, who've been on the call helping with behind the scene logistics. So thank you so much to them as well.
Thanks,
just
Rob.
want to do one.
Okay.
Just want to do one one quick announcement. May 4th is going to be the last webinar of kind of our inaugural season for the Graduate Wind Conductors Association. We are very lucky to have Professor H. Robert Reynolds joining us that day. So sign up will start 2 weeks before, and just look out for that on the group. But again, thank you so much to everyone.
Good luck. I don't
have
anything to offer, man. I don't know. I don't know. It'll be rough to see.
Hey, we're still recording. Be careful.
I'll call him up and tell him, Reynolds, come on, you going to share something? Let's go. That's a joke, please.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and best of luck as we continue on through the semester and quarter.
You can make it.
Stay healthy.
We can make it. Summer's coming. Come check out Interlochen. It's cool.
Stay healthy.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh,
Of course.
yeah.